What would you do if your financial brand was losing over $100 million a year? In today's episode, we're sharing how we framed up a recent website secret shopping study for a regional bank around the personal loan application. Stick around as we break down the critical friction points and how we calculated the lost revenue from unseen blind spots in their customer journey.
You're listening to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.
Welcome back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I'm Audrey Kanata, operations lead here at the Digital Growth Institute. And today joining us is founder and CEO, James Robert Lay.
Hey, Audrey.
Hey, James Robert. Hey, this episode is all about seeing things differently and from a new perspective. And I know you recently just got back from a trip where you invested in your own learning and development.
Yes, and it is that ongoing learning and development I'm fully committed to for myself. I know you are continuing to learn, you are continuing to grow as well. It is a core part of our ethos here at the Digital Growth Institute. And I will tell you, from the coaching that I've done and a couple of the groups that I've been a part of, really, going all the way back to 2017. But my own personal journey of growth and development it started in 2012. And I had to wait for things to get really bad. And what was happening was I had a lot of blind spots. I had a lot of blind spots personally. I had a lot of blind spots professionally that was causing a tremendous amount of pain in my life, and had to, for lack of a better word, kind of hit rock bottom before I made some changes. And it's my goal to never be at that point again, which is why I'm continuously investing in myself, investing in you and others here, so that we're all learning, we're all growing, we're all getting even better together. And it's because it's what we can't see. If you think about like an iceberg, you can only see the tip of the iceberg, but it's what's below the water that I think often causes the biggest, pain, frustration, and friction.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's so common. We get to a really, really rough place, really dark place, and that's when we decide to reach out and ask for help. But you did, and
And still am.
we also, you still
And
are,
still am.
yes, totally understand. We've actually had several people reach out to us recently on the professional side who feel like they've gotten to a really rough place
Yeah.
and have now reached out and said, okay, I need your help.
Yes, they have. And if you are watching, if you are listening, we are getting text messages. And so I'll put my number out there. It's 832-549-5792. Or you can text Audrey 415-579-3002. And if you are curious where you might have blind spots within your own customer journey, we can run you through a blind spot assessment. And you'll quickly see within just a short period of time uh, where those blind spots are. And when you do a blind spot assessment, you'll walk away with 1 to 2, 3 different insights that you can take action on, typically within the next 30 days. And it's painless. We're looking for quick wins. We're looking for rapid progress that leads to rapid transformation for you and for your team.
For sure. And they get to spend, what is it, an hour? How long is the call? I get to spend an hour with you, James Robert.
It's an hour. And we just walk through the different stages of the buying journey: awareness, consideration, purchase, adoption, and advocacy. And we tend to focus in on one specific stage of that buying journey. And what don't you know? What can't you see? And provide just another perspective. And a lot of the perspective that are driving these assessments come from facilitating over 1,300 website secret shopping studies at this point.
Nothing to lose.
Exactly.
So let's break down. We are working with a regional financial brand, and we are looking at their personal loan journey. And you and I were together in person last week, and we were crunching numbers. We were laughing because we really had to go back and remember some of our multiplication strategies. We were trying to get to the bottom of just how much lost revenue was on the table for this particular financial brand. And after, I think it took two of us and 5 or 10 minutes of scratching and crossing things out, we came up with $100 million was the number that we came up with in lost interest income.
Yes, we did. And this was one of those situations that there was a financial brand. They came to us. We had the conversation. Um, they thought they wanted to just secret shop one portion of their site. And through some discussions, we said, well, what about this? And we asked some questions and then we weren't sure. And then we finally were said, this is what we recommend. And it was really looking at the awareness, the consideration, and then all the way through purchase to identify specific blind spots in the application was really it was a big discussion point. And
Mhm.
so, as part of the onboarding process, you guide them through another type of an assessment to get some key numbers because it really begins to quantify what the opportunity loss is.
Yeah.
And this is before we even begin facilitating the study with ideal prospects or ideal account holders to work them through a a buying journey. And I think
Yeah.
that's where you and I pick up the story here because I think we just had lunch and we were determining what the economic potential could be, what the revenue potential could be. And I got stuck because I said, I know how we should figure this out. I don't know how to find the delta here. And you said, listen, I got this. And literally you got a pen, you got the styrofoam box that we had for lunch, and you just went to town on top of the styrofoam box and you did some cross multiplication. And you're like, there's our answer. I was like, that was so brilliantly done.
I mean, it took us a minute. We really had to refresh our memories. One thing I do want to note before we go any further, I think it's important to say that this study that we're discussing, this is a unique situation where we are looking at multiple parts of the customer journey. So our general secret shopping studies just focus on one. So this was a little bit of a deeper, longer engagement. And so I just wanted to clarify that for our listeners who've been hearing us talk about our website secret shopping studies, that this one's a little bit different.
What's the difference here for those who are watching or listening? And I think it's important to make that distinction of what we tend to do to start off a financial brand because we don't typically start a financial brand at this level or what I would say going this deep because there are different depths of the buying journey. But to your point, this is not necessarily normal, but because of the unique situation, it made a lot of
Yeah.
economic sense as we'll talk about today.
Yeah, so they came to us really just wanting to look at the application experience. So from the time the user clicks, get started, let's apply, to the full experience, up into everything but funding, basically. And that's great, and we agreed with that. We also recommend backing up though and looking at the awareness and consideration stage, because if we can't even get potential account holders or customers through that part of the experience to then decide to click apply. I mean, it doesn't matter how great or not your application is if no one's clicking it.
I'm
And
glad you
so
made that
we decide,
distinction. Yeah.
do what?
I'm glad you made that distinction
Yes.
because you're right. If we can't get someone, and I think as we talk about today, we'll figure out how much of the application drop off is happening before someone even clicks apply. Because if we just focus on that and not even the application, because that was one of the things that was noted in the discussion with them, and I'm so happy that you push back because that was your perspective. That was your said. I don't know because they said that, oh, well, we can't touch the application. That's something that we can't change. And you said, well, if people aren't even getting to the application, what's the point of secret shopping the application to begin with?
Well, and then there's things that we can do. I understand that a lot of the application can't, your hands are tied, you can't fix it. But if we can get ahead and see what the potential friction points are by going through the secret shopping study, we can get ahead of it. We can then go back and set the expectations. Like if we know there's going to be a section there's a little bit of a hiccup or some sort of friction or something that wasn't expected, we can go back and try to be proactive with our communication and our messaging so that by the time the user gets to that application, they're not as thrown off.
It's a great point and a really good distinction. And I want to put a little disclaimer out here before we keep moving forward. Get your pen, get your paper.
Ugh,
There are some numbers that we're going to be walking through. Now, you could be watching, you could be listening to this, but if you're sitting down, grab some pen, grab some paper, grab a pen, because you could take this same type of an approach and start
get a
think.
calculator.
Get a calculator. Yeah, just save yourself the trouble. Get a calculator. You know what? We should probably. That's a great idea, and that's you think about how many ideas come out of this podcast, whether it's between you and me, or we have guests coming on, and we're always seeing and thinking about ways to make things even better. I think if we built a
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
some type of a calculator to help those that watch those I cannot speak today, my tongue is so tied, those that watch or those that listen to this podcast, to help them really see and just plug in some numbers what they are losing based upon our benchmarks that we've established for the industry.
That would be amazing. If anyone knows anyone out there that can help us with a custom calculator,
I think I know the right people for that. You and I are gonna we'll go
we have
offline
to
on that.
we talk to somebody.
Yeah, we did, so we're gonna have to loop back around on that, and make some progress there for sure. Uh, let's get into the problems here, because I think there are three problem statements that we have, or three different areas that we could focus on, maybe even four, um, for this conversation today to help those watching or listening when thinking about where they might have blind spots in their own customer journeys.
Yes, certainly. So we were, this financial brain came to us and they were concerned because there was a 67% application abandonment rate. And so that was the problem, that was the challenge, and they needed help identifying why. Where was the drop off? What is happening? Where are people feeling confused and frustrating and abandoning this process? So that was the first big problem, is that they wanted to look at and see where is this happening and why.
And that's where you setting the context before was very important, because yes, they had a 60%, 67% abandonment rate on the personal loan application. The bigger challenge is that 75% of people that landed on this particular page, which this was a page that they are running paid traffic to,
Yep.
75% dropped off before even getting to the form. Now, I'm making the distinction here between paid traffic and organic traffic.
Yes.
So, put it this way, for every 100, 1,000, or $100,000 that they're spending to buy traffic, to buy eyeballs that come to this page, and this is direct traffic. So let's say they spend, we'll just go in the middle, $10,000 to run traffic to this page. Targeting in that ad is going to target a personal loan. So people that click on that ad have some type of potential need that a personal loan could help solve.
Yep.
For every $10,000 that they're spending, they're losing $7,500.
So this financial brand came to us with a lot of data, and we appreciate that. We don't see it all the time. And so they were able to provide for us, traffic, um, the abandoned application rate, the funded application. We knew what the average personal loan amount was for. We knew the average length of time the loan was for, and we knew the average interest rate. So we were able to take all these numbers, and you and I actually sat together last week and crunched them. It took two of us and a lot of scratched out marks to come up with the value. And the math that we did, we saw that there was an $8.4 million a month in lost interest income, which then equates to $100 million annually.
Yes, and that $100 million, if we back into that just for context, is specific to the abandonment process. Correct?
Correct. So we took the 68% who were, let me back up. We tied a dollar sign of value to each personal loan.
Why is that important? Because I think a lot of organizations, a lot of financial brands, they think in regards to, well, they know what their abandoned application rate is.
Because money talks more than percentages. Money hurts more than, what is 68%? That doesn't say anything. That doesn't paint
It's
a
not a
picture.
motivator.
But when you hear $8.4 million, that's like the head explosion emoji.
Yes, and that $8.4 million, that's per on a month by month basis. When you extrapolate that and put that over the course of a year, that's $100 million
Yep.
loss. And I
Yep.
think we've had these conversations with others, and it really does get the attention of the executive team. It gets the attention of the CFO, of the CLO, and it's good because that's where real collaboration begins to happen. Because I think a lot of times, like, oh, that abandonment rate, that's a marketing problem, or that's a sales problem, or that's an IT problem. This is starting to really surface things throughout the entire organization. Of
Yep.
this is an obstacle that's really an opportunity that we can work on together.
Yeah. The marketers out there, if you want some buy-in, uh, you run these numbers and go show them to the executive team.
Yeah, and now that we know, and this is why when they said, "Well, we know we have an application issue. Can you help us identify where the friction points are, where the blind spots are in the application?" And you said, "Well, let's also take this up a little bit higher into the buying experience, into the shopping experience, because this is not just an application problem. This is
Mhm.
a website shopping problem. What are we seeing here? Because we're just now getting the study started, but even before we started the study, we were looking at the economic
Yeah.
feasibility here."
Yeah. So we knew that the traffic to this page was about 15,000 per month. And we also knew that only about close to 4,000 were starting an application. So we needed to figure out the other 11,000. Why were they leaving? Where were they going? What were they thinking? What were they feeling? So that's one section of the study in and of itself. Then we look at, okay, well, 4,000 people started the application, but only, what was it, close to 1,000 got funded.
Yeah.
All right, so what happened so there was intent to buy. It's
Mhm.
somebody starting the application process. They're close. And then they abandon. What happened there?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So we got to
wanna
look at those two pieces of the
we
experience.
do. I wanna loop back around because you actually have helped me see things differently in this conversation, and I just got out my little trusty calculator to run some numbers, because we found that the for this particular organization, the interest income that comes from a personal loan was about $3,000. Now,
Right.
you mentioned that 4,000 people that visit this page a month start the application process, but about 11,000 people are not even beginning the application. So if you actually take that 11,000 lost opportunity, and this is not organic traffic, once again, this is paid traffic. They're running
Right.
paid ads to position the personal loan
Hurts even more.
to position the personal loan to people that have an affinity or have a
Yeah.
potential need for a personal loan. So you get 11,000 people that don't even click the apply button. Well, if you take 11,000 and multiply that by 3,000, we'll do this again real fast because I just want to double check my math. That's $33 million in lost interest income per
Yeah.
month, per month. And then if you multiply that over the course of 12 months, that's almost $400 million in lost potential net, or not net, in lost potential interest income.
Yeah. Well, then all the loss on the digital ad dollars as well.
Well, I
And
think, yeah,
this is probably important to note too. This organization, they wanted to secret shop this campaign landing page, but they also wanted to secret shop the corporate
they did.
personal loan page. They wanted to do both. And of course, as always, we like to get the studies as narrow as possible, go as deep as possible. And so we did recommend let's focus on the landing page that you're paying for people, you're paying for leads. Let's
Yeah,
worry about that first. Let's try to save your money.
exactly. Let's flip this around a little bit, because there's a potential opportunity here where small improvements lead to some pretty massive gains. And that can be in two different areas. We'll call this conversion rate optimization. And one
Yep.
of those areas for conversion rate optimization is to just simply increase people that start the application process. So, once again, 75% of people that visit the page don't even start the application, 25% start the application. So, what happens theoretically is if we could get just an increase of 5% more people. So to take the starts from 25% to 30%. I mean, that has a very big positive impact on
Yes.
the
I'm so
bottom
glad
line.
yeah. I just think I'm so glad you're doing that. I think we're trying to obviously paint a massive picture with these numbers and just to show, just to illustrate how large and the losses and the potential gains. And so that's the whole point of the $100 million problem because that is the full potential. But I'm so glad that you are just talking now about incremental changes. What if we just increased it by 5%? So I'm so glad you jumped in there with that reframing.
And when we look at that number, if we increase it just 5%, because they had a lot of great data, as you mentioned before. And so if we were to increase the application starts by just 5%, um, we know that we'd get around 789 more starts per month. But even calculating that down to the funded percentage, which would result in an additional 95 funded loans. So when we're looking at the net interest income, or not the net, but just the interest income here for a personal loan, that's at $285,000 per month in additional interest income associated to it's just a small 5% increase in application starts, which they don't even have to touch. They're not even optimizing the application experience at that point. They're
Yep.
controlling what they can control, which is the on page website shopping
Mhm.
experience. And when you take that $285,000 a month by just simply getting 5% more people to start the application, well, that leads to an additional 3.4 million in interest income coming from their personal loan for this particular campaign over the course of a year. What about what
Yeah.
about
I mean,
what about abandonment? Oh, you were going to say something.
no,
Uh,
I just think that that's a more realistic these are more realistic numbers. I mean, there's really no reason why they can't increase application starts by 5% with just making a few optimizations. I mean, this is actually can be done. Very, very possible.
and we're going to find out where we have hypothesis of where
Mhm.
those gaps are in the website shopping experience based upon
Yep.
1300 plus studies that we facilitated over the years. We don't want to make an assumption though. It's kind of like a if someone came to us and said, "Can you look at our site and tell us where the blind spots are?" I I can. I always put a disclaimer out there saying that, you know what? this would be like me going to the doctor and me telling the doctor that, hey, here are my symptoms. And the doctor
Yep.
says, okay, here's the prescription. The doctor can be sued for, misdiagnosis and
Yep.
malpractice. So if we do not go to the market and we facilitate a website secret shopping study, that's like malpractice at that point. And the other thing that we're seeing too is if they were to recapture with the abandoned applications, because once again, the abandoned applications for this particular organization for their personal loan was 67%. If they were just able to go back in and recapture just say 5% of those applications, that would then give them an additional 54 funded loans per month, which would calculate out to $160,000 in additional interest income per month, which is then once again $1.9 million in additional interest income over the course of the year. So when you take that 5%, we'll say before someone clicks apply, you increase the application starts, and then you recapture an additional 5% of those that abandon, we're looking at a potential recapture of $5 million in interest income over the course of a year.
Small incremental changes.
Not big changes,
Yeah.
small. We're not talking massive transformation. We're talking 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. I mean, even if we took those numbers and we divided them in half, because once again, we're looking at about a $5 million in potential in potential income, interest income here over the course of a year. Make those numbers 2.5%. Increase the application starts by 2.5%, recapture 2.5% of abandoned applications. And guess what? You've got $2.5 million now in interest income. That's an even smaller optimization right there.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think we're trying to convey is just and maybe it's overwhelming, and I get that, like the thought of crunching numbers. 100 million just seems so big and lofty, and I completely understand all of that, but I just want to help convey that it really is small changes in these studies. Now, granted, this example that we're talking about is a little bit of a longer and deeper study, just because of the scope of the project and what they want with the application experience. But the other piece of it, that consideration phase, the investment financially and time, it's very, very minimal. I mean, it's very minimal, which is why majority of our clients come back and do 2, 3, 4 a year. Because once they get started and they see, oh my gosh, why did I wait so long to do this? This is simple. They come back. Rarely, I don't know, James Robert, rarely have we ever have you ever just stopped at one secret shopping study? I mean, I know we have, but no, it's not very often.
It's few and far between that there is an organization that just does one, because to as you opened up this discussion today, it's a matter of perspective. It's
Yeah.
helping financial brand leaders see things differently. And I know, I mean, as we are recording this today, right before we click the record button, there was a financial brand leader who shared an experience that they had about us secret shopping their site. And they said, and I'm going to quote them. This was on LinkedIn. It's public knowledge. It says, "The shop that we did with the team was invaluable in helping us level up our site. I'm looking forward to the results of a second one."
Yeah, there you go. See, I love it.
See different, think
Yeah.
different are the first two steps of human transformation. The third one, as you and I often talk about, is you got to feel different. And that is where we continuously provide the coaching to create the
Mhm.
accountability so that the insights we share are actually applied, that there is action taking. And then we come back and we do the study again and we look for a new set of blind spots, because the consumer behavior, if you think about the work that we do from a digital anthropological standpoint, It's the intersection of marketing, sales, technology, and human behavior. It's the human behavior that's the wild card. That's the
It is.
variable.
Yeah. And I think we're such big advocates, and I know in our personal lives, but also professionally, it's the James Clear, it's the 1%, the incremental changes that have the exponential results, and that's, I think, over the last few years, one of the things that we've realized is the importance of these smaller, and we've repositioned, and we have completely changed up, our offering, because we have realized this. We have realized the power in these smaller
Mm,
commitments, these smaller changes versus like trying to sell this whole transformational product.
yeah.
We now know, and we've had experience with this personally and professionally.
That's a fantastic point to start to wrap up on here because I know, and I'll fall on the sword. That's my that was my Achilles heel. And perhaps it's just because I see things at such a high
Right.
visionary level. Like I live up on the mountaintop, if you will, and I can see things and I can see obstacles and I can see opportunities. But then it's like I get all excited and you've really helped with this. Delina's really helped with this. You're like, no, you gotta you gotta come down. You gotta bring this down and like let's make this really, really practical. And that's where once again, you know, I just came back from doing some training and coaching for my own self. And I'm going out again this week and doing some more training and coaching because I know that I have these blind spots that have created conflict, they have created friction in our own experiences.
Yeah.
You recently talked about this too with our own website secret shopping study. So this is something that we deal with, we struggle with,
Yep.
I deal with, I struggle with myself, and it's about being even better together.
Yes. And always appreciate you leading by example there. If there's one thing, James Robert, he talks about it, but he also, he does it himself. And I can see that.
Well, thank you for creating some
Yep.
space to talk about just our own experience, but specifically this experience today, where there's an organization that, yeah, they're losing $100 million a year because of blind spots within their customer journey. But in reality, I see the potential for them to be able to recapture 3 million, $5 million of that going forward into the future.
I agree. Thank you so much, James Robert, for another great conversation. And stay tuned. We will be doing a follow up podcast talking about the results we did from this study.